I'm Clint, and welcome to Swatches Livestream number 30. This is the midweek challenge. So we started the challenge last week. We've got some sketches submitted in this week, and then the final will be next week. Anyway, we'll be taking a look at some of those this episode, as well, of course, taking your questions live from the chat. Looks like my camera's a little off, so let me adjust that. If you are watching this in recording, then take a look for the timestamps down below in the description so that you can jump over to whatever the part of the video that you actually want to watch. It will take me a little bit to get those in. I'll have to wait until YouTube actually processes the video and posts it, and then I'll be able to go out there and add those. But if you're joining live, then yeah, we're going to just chill for a minute, let people join in before we get started. And okay, everything looks good there. I'm going to just jump it over to my screen. Okay, I don't need OBS. Milos, Isabella, Joel, man, how's it going? Hey Clint, you look younger today. You know what? That can happen when you get some good sleep. Yeah, I got pretty good sleep last night and the night before, and I'm feeling a lot better. I wasn't really feeling bad, but just a bit more energy. So we've got some good submissions this week for the art challenge. If you are new to the stream, then welcome and thanks for joining. And if you want to get more involved with swatches, the best thing to do is join the Facebook group, because that's where we have just daily updates on stuff. You can post your images out there or get feedback from the group. Occasionally I can give feedback too, just depending on my time. And of course we have the challenge here. You don't have to submit a concept or a sketch in order to submit a final. So if you're just joining in and you think, oh man, I missed it. No, you didn't miss it. You can still send something in. This is the write-up from the Facebook page. So let me just hit over what everybody's aiming for here. And that is this isometric game stage design. Basically 3/4 view looking down. It can be any location that you want. Just make sure it has some place that a character could reasonably enter or exit, and something that they could look at or interact with in the stage. Give it multiple levels so the whole thing isn't completely flat. And we want to do it the final in color. So that is what's going on there. How's it going, guys? Doing good out there? I'm going to move this over a little bit. YouTube saying that I do not have... Okay, there we go. It's back to green. Okay. Thought my connection might be dead. The connection here is a little dodgy, so if it does glitch, just realize it's probably on my side. When it is working, it's very smooth and it's fine, but occasionally there are dips and there's not too much I can do about it right at this time. So we got 20 in here. All right, Paul, I didn't get a chance to submit, but I did do a sketch. Can we submit to the Dropbox? That particular folder is closed right now. I did put a deadline on the sketches. I will create a new folder that you can submit a final to, and your final doesn't have to be finished. It can still be in a sketch phase. That's fine. But I will create a new one. I will post that out on the Facebook group, and you can find the link there. Yep. But currently, we have... I used Stefan's image for the thumbnail. So, let's see. We're about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have 11 submissions currently right now. So those are what we'll be looking at. We'll be talking through some of these. I don't have it real laid out. Like, I don't know what we're going to actually be talking about. Or we'll probably be doing some paint overs. I do have portfolios if we want to dive into looking at some of those, random portfolio reviews. Yeah. And of course, questions in the chat. If you want me to talk about something, whether it's just art in general or art business, or if we want to look at you know, how to paint something in particular, then yeah, just toss it in the chat. And if you were talking to me specifically, or a question or comment directed to me, then put @Swatches in the type in your comment in the live chat, so it flags it for me. It's much easier to see it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll assume they were probably just talking to each other. Alright, so let's go ahead and start looking through some of these. They're just listed in alphabetical order, so that's what we'll do. And since there's not that many, we should be able to go through these and give some personal comments on each one of them. In the past, when we've had somewhere around 50 submissions for sketches, then I can't do that. But since we have a fairly small pool this time, I should be able to. Amarov, hello, hey, how's it going? Riccardo, good to see you guys. So this is from Agata, the Dragon's Inn. Okay. So you're doing a couple of different designs for the inn, plus a cutout. Yeah, so you can kind of see inside of how it's made. But not exactly the direction I was thinking, but yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I would like to see maybe a little bit of the area around it just supporting kind of the location it's in. Just give me enough to know, is this like a rocky place, grassy place? Is it in the woods? Then put some trees there. Is it snowy? Something like that. Yeah, just give me a little bit of the area around it. Mikolaj says, question, I am just curious, how do you study anatomy? How much drawings you do, Clint, for improving your anatomy skills? Well, I don't do so much anymore, but I think one of the best ways is to follow, yeah, I'd say follow what I say in the anatomy videos, but that episode has not been released yet. In the 4th episode, the final episode of the Art Fundamentals, Basic Anatomy and Proportions, which will be coming out next week, I do talk about some ways of studying and practicing. I can go ahead and give you kind of a little preview, which is get used to sketching the skeleton version, the simple or mid-tier skeleton version, and do it from reference. So don't just draw what you see in the reference, draw the pose of the skeleton from the reference. And it'll actually make you think about what's going on underneath as far as the structure, and instead of just copying the lines, which is a real easy problem to fall into. And the same thing can happen with, say you like, you know, Bern Hergar's anatomy book. You don't want to just copy his illustrations. What you want to do is draw other images from reference the way that he shows you to draw the anatomy. So use the same forms and shape language that he shows in his book, but render other things in that way. Otherwise, you'll just get into the copy mode where you're just going copy line, copy curve, copy shadow, and you're not going to be learning very much from that. So that would be one thing. Another thing would be just sketching portraits, just drawing portraits. And probably put a time limit on that, because it's, again, easy to get into the habit of giving yourself way too much time getting caught up in the details. I know that there are several websites out there that have libraries of portrait photos of people, and you can tell it, okay, give me a slideshow for every 5 minutes. I want a new image. And then you just set aside an hour, and you turn on the slideshow, and it'll show you this photo. You draw that portrait in 5 minutes, it's automatically going to give you a new photo. And you do that. And it keeps you from, again, getting off in the weeds with the details. And yeah, it's a good way to practice. All right, moving on. So with these Dragons Inn, I like a lot of your shapes going on here. They're not just the normal kind of A-frame, but it's got a bit of personality to it. No, I'm trying to move this computer. There we go. The triple tier is cool. Dun, dun, dun. I'm just thinking, okay, from a game standpoint, now these are all very solid designs. I'm from a game standpoint, I'm thinking if I was like, you know, transported to Skyrim or similar, and I had this design in there, you know, like this guy, I'd almost want to see a little windmill, you know, off over here. Then it's connected into that building. And so, you know, they got a little power there. And it also gives something that gives motion in the scene. That's... I don't need that one right now, computer. Thank you. So that would be kind of cool. Give a little sense of life to the scene. You see games do that a lot with at least giving a chimney with some smoke coming out. And the smoke is slowly drifting. Or maybe there's a little lantern that has a flickering light. Again, little signs of life. And I know that you're obviously doing a still image. But that is an idea. Kind of throwing that in there. Also consider some of the ideas. I don't know if you're doing all of these or you're just picking one. But some of them would be good to see with a level of destruction, of age, of wear. So maybe, you know, this one's been forgotten for a long time and it's got some vines climbing up on it. Maybe it's got some trees coming in around it. That would be good. You know, maybe some of these have fallen off. A couple of the windows have broken. You know, that sort of thing. Just you know, shift it a little bit. So it's not just perfect, maybe not like newly built. That can be cool. Yeah, I think some other things, like even if you want to go slightly fantasy version, like there's maybe pipes coming out of some of these. Like they have maybe some different level of technology besides just regular medieval sort of time period. Otherwise, those are smart. I particularly like this triple towered one. Is cool. The perspective on this one's weird. So that the perspective on that one's off because we're looking up at that, and we're this would be like a really angled side. So you know, look at the perspective on that one. And I'm not sure three-dimensionally how this one works, but that one catches my eye. I don't know what these are, these tall ones in the back. I mean, if you want to put like a... Well, that's something else to consider with a design like this is you can almost have like a courtyard behind it and maybe have like a giant statue. Like this inn was built around some historical site or you know, monument. Yeah. All right, so just a couple of ideas. I'm pretty happy with that. I think more work can be done in here. It looks like you just did a block in, and that's cool. Obviously, this is just halfway through. But try to work in some elements that, like, a player would walk in here, right? Let's pick a different color so we can see. A player is going to walk in here and look for things that they can loot, look for things that they can break, or look for things that they can learn from. So we want to look for, you know, pots. If it's Zelda, we want to look for pots that you can break to find some rupees. Maybe there's a little shelf back here with some books if you need to learn something about the lore. Maybe the carpeting just adds some color. You know, an inn like this is likely going to have a hearth. Maybe even on this wall is a big fireplace. with the chimney coming up, you know, against our close wall. Yeah. All right, so yeah, just some ideas there. Excellent ideas as far as your buildings. Yep. Let's close up. Riccardo says, I'm writing a little article, an atmospheric perspective with some reference, but the photos I find online are way too manipulated to look natural. Any hint and where to watch for those materials? Some reference, but the photos I find online are way too manipulated to look natural. Any hint and where? You're trying to find images that have, I would say, one of the first places I go is photobash.org, not a sponsor, but excellent photos. He's got some good atmospheric ones there. Another one actually is a decent resource is the Google View. And you can go look at places, like go look at Google View of different hiking paths along Scotland's coast. They've started doing that where they will actually get hikers to carry their 360-degree recording camera that they use for Google Street View, and they will take it along hiking paths throughout all over the world, and it will give you unadulterated, beautiful landscape views of all of these areas that naturally have a lot of atmospherics. So yeah, that would be one of the things I'd go look at. Yeah. George Cearley, hey man, how's it going? Jay Welch, good to have you. Good to have you. Thank you for teaching us so much in these free streams. Well, George, thanks for joining. I appreciate everybody. Oh yeah, of course, we just passed 1,000 members on the Facebook group. I am very excited. That's awesome. I never knew that Swatches would grow into anything like this. So I love that you guys are liking it, and thanks for being involved. Okay, next up, Aurelie. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. Aurelie. All right, pencil sketch in. I'm gonna just knock down. Okay, so this is a scan of a page, I assume, pencil page, and I'm gonna just knock out the gray. You can open the levels palette, click the white, which will be the white balance, then click on whatever the gray tone is that I want to get rid of, and then it'll knock it out. You're a bit, oh, you're not that late. We just looked at one image and kind of went over what the challenge was, MK. Yeah. So, Aurelie. Outdoor scene. It looks like there's a little creek. Loggers camp. Planks pass. Exotic wood. Oil palm seedlings. Black spitting cobra. A canal block. Orangutan in a crate. Okay. Tiger runs at night. Good to remember. Fight. Okay, so I don't know what kind of game this is. Yeah, your classic isometric. Everything is just set to that 45-degree angle. Let me back to a color. I don't know how you plan to do the colors on this one, but it reminds me of like some of the Zelda games or like Chrono Trigger or something, where you're just kind of walking around looking for little things you can interact with. I do like that you added the multi-levels to it. Call outs. So you're going around, you're gathering different things. You're watching out for animals. Blink fast. What you might consider is putting in an actual, like once you color it, it's hard, you can't do it so much in the pencil, but once you go to coloring it, you know, this is going to be green, right? Let's set that to multiply. Yeah. Grass is usually a bit more yellow than you think it is. It's not It's not usually blue-green. So once you put some of your grass in, coming back with a path, even if it's just very light, you can just pick, you know, some sort of light sandy color. Usually lighter than the grass. Yeah. And you know, I'll make sure that you put that in. Then that would make something makes sense for a game like this, where you are just kind of meandering around. It looks like you could go a lot of places and interact with a lot of things, but it's a very soft way to direct the character on where to go. And also, when you're doing that, depending on your rendering style, you can come in here occasionally and get a little shadow and just put it on the inside of where the grass is with the path, and kind of make it feel like there's some three-dimensionality to the thickness of the grass. You know, there we go. That would work well. I would make sure that you keep things at the right level, not get too busy. Like with these plants, it's good to have them. I would say that, yeah, you need like your basic grass tone, and then these plants need to stay very close to that same value and color. So maybe you just go slightly more to the blue side and you go slightly darker. Right? Maybe you do that sort of thing. And it has this little cast shadow. And I'm going to assume you're going to paint out some of the lines. So I'm going to take some of those out. So you've got some of these other plants that are there to add a bit of texture, right? They just kind of break up that grass pattern, but you don't want them so much that they actually look like you should be able to interact with them. And that's one of the biggest things to pay attention to for a image rendition like this. So the things that are interacting, like this grass down here, maybe you should be able to pick those up. Those are going to be a lot brighter green. Maybe they have a higher value change between them and the other grass. Whereas the textural grass, like these little guys, are going to be very near the natural tone. And also with the other elements, or maybe the elements that you can interact with have a light outline. I know I've seen some of that before. So like maybe these grass actually have a line around them, and you know that you can interact with those. Same thing with the box, right? Maybe the box has some sort of line around it, whether it's a black line or green line or whatever. But okay, yeah, I go with it. Make sure you don't clutter it up too much. Make it clear about what would be interactive, what is not, and vary up your sizes in some things. Like the little, I would almost say, like if you divided this into blocks, right? If this was in a game and you kind of just you thought of things in tiles, then keep all of these small interactive ones within that same tile size, and then you have like a medium size one, right? And maybe that's like this guy or this tree, right? He would maybe need to be a little bit bigger so that he fits within that standard medium size. And then this could be like the large size, right? It's going to take up 8 blocks, and this maybe takes up 4 blocks or tile worth. All right, just some ideas. Okay, don't save. Shiny Guy says, you have a question. What do you do if you don't feel like improving? If you don't feel like improving. I always feel like improving. Or what do you mean? What do you do if you don't? All right, which way do you mean this? Do you mean you don't feel like you want to keep improving, or that you're working at it and you don't see improvement? Clarify that for me, because I would give you two totally different answers. Natalie. Hey Clint, where can I find the link to your Facebook group? I didn't know about it and it's been a while. I'm away from YouTube. You want to find that at, and I'll put it in the chat down here. That is at www.swatches.group. That is a hot link to go directly to the Facebook group. So it'll take you right over there. And I pretty much okay everybody that applies, and I check it twice a day or so. So I should be able to okay you and bring you right in. You're welcome, you're welcome. Milos, can you tell us the best way to practice color? Best way to practice color, I think is one of the best ways is playing around with different color schemes and changing up your palette. Or what I like to do, let's just pull up an example. I did pull up some references. Let me go ahead and open up some of these. This is from the game Rime, which has some really excellent colors and art for it. If you want some inspirations for this challenge, this is from the game Rime, R-I-M-E. So like this is a really nice piece of art. It has good color scheme. So a good way to practice color would be to sketch your own image and then apply this color scheme to that image. And you don't want to just copy this image, but learn how this works. And that is a good way to play with color. My chapter that I just wrote recently on colors has a full outline in there. I would say go out there. The more you learn about colors, the more interested you are in experimenting with it. So you can do that. I've got the color palette selector. I don't know. Let's see. If you're new, maybe you haven't seen it, but I'll show it to you in case you haven't. Let's see. Yep, there we go. So like this guy is something that I made a while back. I'm going to put it up next week for download. Anybody can go out there and download it. It's not up right now. But here we have a color wheel that's been divided into little mosaic. But I also have another one that's just like the standard. And then there is different... this is the old one. Say, this is the old one. That's not what I want. Don't say it. This is the one I was thinking of. It's like, I didn't remember I saved it with the mosaic. Here we go. More of your standard color wheel. Then say you want to improve your colors. We'll go through each one of these. Do a monochromatic color scheme. Monochromatic meaning you have one color that you're using for everything. And so you just rotate this around and go, you know what? Today, blue. We're doing blue. And so you have to paint your entire image with these colors. Now, it can be versions of that, right? And I have a light version. So it's those tones in the lights, those tones in the darks. Let me move it over in case you can't see that. Then the dark version, and then a very dark version. So it all has to be one of those shades. Then you can play with complementary color schemes, which is, you know, opposite colors. And again, you can, oops. Rotate this around and you find a set of colors that you like and you paint it one with that. And really that's one of the best ways to learn how to use color better. So hopefully that helps. Can you tell us the best way to practice color? Yeah, Natalie, thank you. Shiny Guy, don't see improvement. Shiny Guy, when you are practicing and you're not seeing improvement, I usually, okay, I usually equate that to several reasons. One is you are drawing the same thing over and over. So, let's go ahead and close this, don't save. And I'll just give us something to draw on. So, number one, I'd say sorry, the computer lags a little bit when it's processing all this for streams. So it's getting my timing off a little bit. Same subject. And I see that in different people that maybe they start drawing, let's say, horses, and they love drawing horses. And they just draw a horse, and they draw a horse, and draw a horse, and they draw a horse. And maybe they're getting a little bit better at drawing horses, but anytime they try anything else, then it doesn't match up to the level that they can draw horses, so they feel like, oh, I'm not improving. So what they're doing is they're going back to the comfort zone. And that's one of the ways that you can try to beat not improving, is by expanding your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone. Draw things that you don't know how to draw very well. And it'll be a pain, but it's one of the ways to do it. And it's really laggy with the drawing. I think it'd just be better if I type it. Number two is going to be struggle, where you give up too easy, that something gets difficult, and so you just go back to doing small sketches, and you don't push through the hard times to improve. And the fact is, that's where a lot of improvement comes in. Now, something that I learned about, I don't know, 10 years ago is I learned more from pushing through one big image than doing 50 little sketches that were basically in my comfort zone. So pick a big image, something that's complex or difficult for you, not completely absurd, but very challenging, and then push through it until it's done, and don't stop on it. You will be forced to improve. Number three is education. That you're not getting in enough good teaching. That you're trying to find within yourself all the answers that you need, and you're not likely to do that. A good student is going to learn from as many mistakes other artists have made as they can. So there is a lot of great videos out there, whether they're free videos on YouTube or whether they're purchasable videos. There's online classes and workshops and probably local art teachers. So go out there and learn from them, and they will be able to help shorten that time. And they're going to take a lot of the trial and error out of your process, so that you're not having to flail around as for so long in order to find the answers that you need, and thus speeding up your improvement process. So those would be my first three that I would say go after that. Or the other one is, okay, let me put in one more time. You might not be putting in nearly as much time as you think you need to. So maybe you think, I work on it all the time, every day. Maybe every day for you means, oh, for 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, I kind of do a little doodle. Well, no, you're not going to make it. It's going to take you 75 years in order to get to where you want to go. We're talking about throwing hours and hours and hours and hours and hours at it. And try tripling the amount of time that you're doing it. plus getting some good education, push through the big problems with the big pieces, and do stuff out of your comfort zone. I dare say if you do all 4 of those, you're going to start seeing some major improvement very quickly. All right, that's kind of a long answer, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are probably dealing with that same issue, so I wanted to dive into it a little deeper. Gastro 3D says, do you like working freelance? Would you consider working at a studio in the future to do concept art? I do like working freelance, Castro, and yes, I would consider working in a studio in the future as well. So there are pros and cons to each one of them. One of the great things, of course, working freelance is that I get to set my own hours. I do work from home, and that has its own benefits. And I like being my own boss, but there is big benefits to working with a team of artists. It is awesome to work in a room and on a project with a lot of other talented artists. And you're bouncing ideas off of each other, and there is I'm not a competitive person by nature. I'm competitive against myself, but I would say that I get inspired by seeing the work other people put out, and it inspires me to be better. Not that I like try to be better than them. So yeah, that can be awesome. And the other thing about working with a studio is you get to put out something in the end that you'd never be able to do alone. Like if I get to work on, let's say, the new Tomb Raider game that's yet to be announced, which I don't know that there is one, but say that I got on that and I got to help design characters and locations for that game. The end of that game being released, that is something I could never do on my own. So you just got to think about it, and I think after a while I will probably try doing that, because I've done freelance for about the last 8 years and I kind of know what the gig is. And I never have worked in the studio with like a major game or movie, and I'd like to try that out. Can you tell us the best way to learn light and values? Milo says, well, I've got some good resources on it, and I don't want to just be like shameless plugging, but I honestly think I have some pretty good resources on lighting and values. So I would say go check out my fundamental videos, which are free, where I do talk about values, and then I'll give you a quick overview. And then check out my character lighting book and my the mood, understanding mood chapter on lighting. Those both have some excellent things about lighting in it. The other guy that I like to mention to people is Bushi. He is a artist, has a channel here on YouTube, and he has some really good advice on lighting as well, lighting and colors. So I'd recommend going out there and listening to what his stuff is. The other guy, Chad, what is the other guy? We've talked about him before, and he did. He's done concept art for a lot of animated films. And I cannot remember his name. Yeah, Marco Bushi is one of them. And then I think he's a friend of Bushi's. Anyway. Yeah, I would go check out him and see what he has to say. You could even look at... Pinterest has some decent little... Yeah, Nathan Folks. Yes. Yeah, go check out Nathan Folks' stuff as well. Those are both really, really excellent concept artists and illustrators that have videos on the topics of lighting. But as far as practicing it, get the same scene. And it doesn't have to be something complex. It could just be a freaking brick and paint it under different lighting setups. Make it a very bright scene, like it has bright sunlight on it. Paint it as if it has moonlight on it. Paint it... of course, I've got to put out James Gurney's books. light and shadow, color and light and color. Yeah, light and color. Anyway, look up James Gurney's ones, and those are good resources as well. You've been freelance since day one. Can you talk a bit about your career path or history if you haven't done so in previous videos? We've chatted about it in the past some. You've been freelance since day one. Well, I mean, I did full-time graphic design for 7 years or so. Then I finally broke into the illustration field. I was doing graphic design for about 6 years. I decided I really wanted to get out of that. So I started building a portfolio, art portfolio. It took about 2 years to do that. Started picking up some little jobs, and those weren't no names that you would recognize. Little independent games, or like some German games, and illustrations for those, and that was fine. They didn't pay that much, but they got me experience of how to paint something on a deadline per somebody else's outline, and somebody else got to be the art director. They got to decide what the image needed to be like. And if you've never worked under that situation before, then that's practice I would suggest you try to get before you get on with a major company or project. And that's something I'm trying to do with these art challenges. If you're not used to following a description and having to paint something on a deadline, this basically gives you opportunity to get accustomed to that without there actually being money involved and reputation involved. This is where you can get comfortable and make mistakes without there being any real, fallout from that. So yeah, I did some little jobs for a year or so, about a year, while I was also doing graphic design. So I had the two going on at the same time. And then I got on with Wizards and set them portfolio, and they liked it, and I started doing work with them. And once I got work with Wizards, I started being able to get higher gigs and basically be able to transition fully out of the graphic design, because I was making enough from the illustrations from that point. Natalie asked, how long it took for you to do stuff for Magic? When did you feel you were ready for that? The Wizards of the Coast company, in that case, I'm trying to build a portfolio for that. Well, okay, the sort of long answer is I studied art studying art was my main time focus between the ages of 14 to 19. So I had 5 solid years of art education. Through there, I had went through dozens of books, studied through dozens of books. I had a weekly professional portrait, classic portrait artist teaching me through a couple of those years. I took workshops, watched videos, that sort of thing. So good 5 years there. I did a little practicing over the course of the graphic design, plus 2 to 3 years of good studying after that. So I had a solid 8-9 years of practice before I got in with Magic. So, and with them, my rule of thumb was I'm not going to submit my portfolio until I'm doing at least as good work as what they already have, because they have no reason to trade down. They're not going to stop using one of their good artists to use somebody that's not as good. There's just no point, because everybody gets paid a certain bracket. They have brackets for how much they pay on their images, and you don't negotiate with them as far as that. So they're not going to be like, oh, I'll use this
you know, novice artist and pay them half as much. No, they just pay a certain amount and they expect a certain tier of artist for that. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. Yeah. By the way, I met your work through Magic. Your card is one of my favorites. I've upgraded my deck with it. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you be able to find me in the channel and everything through that. That's cool. Okay, let's go back. Riccardo says, I really struggle to paint tree foliage color-wise. Usually it looks very dull and too solid. Guess it's because it's a translucid and reflective material at the same time. Any advice on this? Okay, so when you're painting foliage, you almost need to approach it very differently depending on your proximity to the foliage. Are you, like, if you're right up close to it, then yeah, its translucency is a real factor, where you can see through the leaf. Let's just create something here. Say, okay, so sort of little leafy patterns. So you like on a leaf, which is usually somewhere in that region, let's say, as far as color. If you're looking through the leaf and say that we're seeing the back side of this and the light's on the other side, then of course the underside is going to be much warmer. And you can sort of think of it as like stained glass, right? And the parts that are thickest are going to be darker, because the light's not going to penetrate as much through them. And it's going to be brighter and warmer if the light is coming through the leaf, whereas if it is being hit on the top, it's more likely to be much more blue. And that's sort of the dynamic that you get with leaves. And kind of build a little dimensionality to that. And depending on the angle, it can actually just be very, very bright, depending on the waxy content. But as with trees themselves, like if you're painting a tree, you know, from a distance, then I wouldn't even really worry about that too much. You could take it in a little bit and approach it. Okay, let's say that, and I'm going to just put a little bound on it. So the colors at the top may be to the blue side. That's also not the brush I want to be using. Hang on. Okay, there we go. I was just thinking that with a tree, there's all kinds of little variations of colors in it, and that if I turn on color dynamics, I can ramp that up a decent amount so that I get some variation with the colors of the green. But I can block this in with for the distance, the hardest by far is the mid-ground. Yeah, the mid-ground is kind of where you need a bit of both.
right? And you can kind of, I'm approaching this as if you're doing blocks, right? And it's kind of blocks of leaves, and you can change it up later, but. Milos, well, glad you're able to join us for a little bit. Have a good night or evening or wherever you are. I just kind of put this in here so everybody understands how that's working. Okay. So you can put those in there, and then what you want to do is approach it the same way that the environment artists do for anime background paintings, where they'll put in the overall shape, maybe something like this, and say that we put a little mid-tone between those, just so that they're rounded out a little bit. And then you go back with what you would consider your textural paints, and then you change up the edges. Using the same sort of colors. And now what you're doing is you're changing the surface textures of it. Which I could do faster if I wasn't getting a lag. And you can see where it doesn't take that much to start breaking it up. And you're just kind of going around the exterior so that it has a less perfect pattern. And then you want to come in with the background and you start adding in some little holes. And you could also do kind of this sort of thing by getting some of these colors, and you can put some of those in there as well, just where light might be coming through towards the bottom sides. If you could even think about it like as if it was just a normal sphere, and you've got your base green color, and then you have the shadow tone on this side, and then you have your cooler blue tone on this side, and that's from the sky. And then you have your warmer tones where some of that light, because this is a little translucent, some of that light's going to come through and be visible down there, and then you block it in like that. Hopefully that helps. We'd almost need to do a full episode on just rendering trees, but it might give you a direction to approach it at. Joel, yes, the video is automatically being recorded by YouTube and will be posted after YouTube has a chance to process it. Taylor asks, I'm sort of new to digital art. Where do you suggest I start on your channel, and do you recommend your challenges for beginners? Absolutely. Challenges are meant for every skill level and any medium. Even if you're not that familiar with digital and are real comfortable with it, if you want to just do it in pencil, go for it. So we have some people that do it that way, and that's cool. I would say if you're not that start with the Art Fundamental series. If to just give you a basis. Now, the Art Fundamentals aren't for digital painting necessarily. They pretty much go for any kind of medium. But make sure you're watching those just to get you up to speed. As far as digital, I don't think I have a video on like new to digital painting. No, I would recommend going out and watching something else. If you're not familiar with Photoshop, digital painting, or whatever the program is that you're working with, then go watch something on that, just so that you kind of know your way around how to use the different tools, what the tools do, how to set up your layers and stuff, because it will take a while before working in the program digitally will be second nature. Because right now, when you start, you're going to be fighting the interface while you're also trying to be fighting the image. So the image has, you know, all of its compositional color problems that you're trying to handle, while you're also just trying to figure out where stuff is in the program. So give yourself some time on that. Make sure you take the time to learn the program to, you know, to a level that you're okay with, so that you can put your full attention into the art. You know. I do need to put out a video like new to digital painting tips for beginning painters or something. All right, let's jump through some of these. I will be taking more questions, but I want to make sure that we at least look at these. Okay, this is from Catherine Dame. She's got a dungeon scene going on. I like the idea of the large cage with the walk-arounds, the little platforms around it. That's kind of cool. I would like to see purpose to it. Like right now, we can see that you could walk out here and get to this, but I don't know what you would do from here. Why that's significant? Unless it's to get to another cage, or like up here. Is that a lever? Because that's a lever that would be cool. Like maybe there's mechanical things on this side that you need to walk around to access. I'm taking the. I assume those are inscriptions. Consider angling the walls in. I almost think that would be a little more threatening. Like if the walls had a kind of, like you were inside of a pyramid shape. That could be kind of interesting. Or also cages set in the walls. I feel like it's maybe a little I would say a little too open. It's like those, like you've got a door here and a door here and stairs here and a stairs there and a hole here and a path here. Consider trying to focus the attention somewhere in particular, like a major door here, and give significance to one over the other. And also putting these cages in front of the doors doesn't work real well. One, it just hides them, and two, it wouldn't work well as gameplay. So consider adjusting those so that they're not overlapping where your entrance and exits would be. And maybe even just close off that wall so that we have a nice little self-contained spot here. And this wall would just be a cutaway. I think I'd go with that. Don't, you know, again, like, don't think that everything needs to be new and clean. I know that you just tossed it in there using basic shapes and stuff, but, you know, like, if this was missing some planks, or if it was even off kilter, that would be good. The lighting in here could be really cool if this was like a red glow coming out of that pit. No, anyway, I like it. Keep going with it. I'd say try to make it a little more oppressive. That's why I was kind of thinking like closing in that other wall, moving, tilting it in. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Danila Alex. Oh, okay, let's pull this out so we actually see it. There we go. Alright, started with some photo bashing. You can see some of the photo textures back here. Using that as a guide and sort of blocking in from there. We've got a path sort of leading up here to Broken House. Okay, I like the general idea. A couple of things I would say let's pay attention to before you get too far into it. That's clarity. I think this is one that can be very confusing if you don't go and clean things up properly. So if this is a path, make sure that's a path. It looks like this is a stream, but then the two sort of look like they become the same thing over here. Like, it looks like the path comes here and there's like a walkway, but then the path immediately gets into the stream. So I'm not sure, like, clarify that for me. And also, let's look at the scale. Assumably, these are normal size pine trees. Some sort of conifer tree. Which are not short. Like, most of these trees, my parents got one in the backyard, and, you know, that thing's 80 feet tall. I mean, they're pretty freaking tall. Full size one. More than that, even. And this house is taller than it is. Like, this thing is massive, but I don't get the impression that it's supposed to look big. Also, it'd be a very odd place to build a house because it looks like there's a string going around it. So yeah, just kind of think about the layout. Maybe this house needs to be significantly smaller, or maybe these trees need to be 3 or 4 times the size. You might not need that many trees. You might need as third as many trees, but just make them a lot bigger. So that's something that you could do. It would probably even cut down on the amount of, you know, detailing you have to do. But I like the idea. The cold, the stream coming through here, rocky crevice. You got to look at something in this house first. Yeah, so keep going with that. Do look up references for crumbling cabins, and get some cues off of that about how the structure actually falls apart. And even if you don't take it super realistically, just having the right way that the structure of the house, some of the structure still stands, and then other parts, which parts collapse, that sort of thing. Yeah, Antonio's right. It's a bit of a mess right now. I know what you're going for. So focus on clarity, and I think that would be the main thing I'd say. No. Okay, next up, Isabella. This is cool. I like this idea. I don't know what's going on here, but a little island with a magical lodestone would be my guess. And yeah, that's cool. Okay. I'm feeling pretty good about all of this. I don't know if you just have it sketch these in or you don't plan to have them. I kind of like the idea of the other smaller ones orbiting this big one. I think it's more interesting visually, so consider that. The shape of this island is nice because it's sort of lopsided, and you've got the browns, you've got greens, you've got a little pool of water. So there's good textures and colors working together there. You've got scattered rocks around here. Okay, good with that. Consider some little plants, a fern, a bush, instead of just grass and rock. I think some little fern things going on here would be nice. Turning this into a sandy beach area would be good too. I think that might be what you're going for. I would support that. Oh, no, it's exactly Isabella's saying it. I apologize, it's really rough.
No, it's supposed to be rough. This is a sketch. This is where you develop your idea before you commit all the way to it. You got the little houses, bungalows down here. Okay. It almost reminds me of like a Zelda Wind Waker environment, of some island that you might stop at to go check something out. With these, consider trying to give them each a little different character or a function, so that as you're going along, you could go, oh, well, that's the fisherman place, and have a little dock outside of it, and he's got, you know, fishing nets hung up, and he's got his little fishing boat there. Maybe this one is the restaurant, and so it's got, you know, signage out there that has a, you know, fish on a fork. You know, whatever, some sort of signage to let you know that. Maybe it has, again, like smoke in the little chimney or something. So, yeah. That would just give a little bit more character, and then also different shapes to the buildings. Some of them a little taller, some of them a little smaller. Yeah. I wanted the small orange gem thing to glow, but would that be too weird? Light on light. No, I think that would make sense. You're obviously establishing this as some sort of magical artifact structure. So making it glow, I think that would be within the scope of what you've established. Also, good, excellent colors on the water, by the way. I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna point you to look at Wind Waker, sort of the colors and the design that they used, as well as Rime, which I sort of looked at earlier, and that makes sense. And you know, in the game context, yeah, maybe the power of the magic crystal is fading, and so you need to be able to identify where that crystal is very quickly. To me, it feels like there is no true main light, like sunlight is very passive. Yeah, it depends on the game, right? Because some games are that way. They're not lit to create a certain mood. I mean, look at the 2D Zelda games. Whether it's, you know, like the original Zelda, way 2D, to any of the, you know, 3DS. They don't use lighting really to try to create mood, other than you go into some of the dungeons and it's a bit darker, but on the surface, you know, it's sort of flat, and that can be okay for the sort of game that you're going for. But if you want to just create more mood or realism, you could set a particular angle for the sun, and maybe cast shadows is something that you could start incorporating, where, you know, the sun is from here, so this part has a cast shadow. Each of these has a specific cast shadow as well. And whether you want that to be that way, you could, where the sunlight is very direct, or you could have more indirect light where it's still very bright, but the idea is it's coming through cloud cover, so all the shadows are sort of softened out a bit. Yeah. You said, Clint, I want to give up. Where are the gains? You want to give up? Where are the gains? I think you need to go back to the what do I do when I feel like I'm not making and when I'm not improving. So keep at it. Again, got to stick through it. Keep at it. I talk about it in my video, The Attribute. Don't give up. Don't give up. There's no skill, there's no image so complex or so difficult that you can't beat it given enough time and effort. And maybe that time and effort, you know, runs into the years, but that's how you do it, by not giving up. Make sure you're getting good education. Make sure you're getting instruction. If there's a local teacher, go try to do that. There's an online teacher that you could get feedback from. try that as well. And make sure you're around positive people, getting good encouragement on a daily basis. If you're not getting that from your friends and family, and I recognize some people don't have a positive social circle. I've mentioned him before. He's one of my go-to guys. Go watch Brendan Bouchard, YouTube guy. He talks mainly about self-improvement and just getting excellence out of your life. And that can be applied to art. That can be applied to anything that you're going through, any of your personality. So, or your work, that sort of stuff. So go check that out. Yeah. How do you get your character book? Go to swatchesart.com and you can purchase it out there. It's a little Shopify store. Yeah, swatchesart.com. There's a link in the there's a link in the description on the last video, the art fundamentals anatomy video. There'll be one in this one as well, so you can go find it from the description of several of those, or just go out to the shop. Yeah, swatchesart.com. If I hit a ceiling, it usually requires me to go back and strengthen my fundamentals. Yes and no. If you don't have fundamentals down, that has to be your focus. You've got to take care of that first. And after that, if you hit a ceiling, then I would say power through. Because you don't want to get back into that first problem, which is you just fall back on things that are in your comfort zone. And if fundamentals are in your comfort zone, you don't want to just constantly be doing fundamental sketches. It's like, if you're going to study portraits for a while, then draw portraits. And you sketch portraits, and you sketch proportions, and you sketch eyes and noses and stuff. But then do a really good, long, realistic portrait. Don't just do 50 little portrait sketches. Do one that requires a lot of time and attention. So that's really how it should work, right? You do a collection of sketches, and then sketch, 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 and then you apply it to a big piece. And then you go back and you do your studies. Sketch, 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 sketch. And you go do another big piece. And you don't want to cut these out, because then you won't learn how to power through, and you won't learn how to apply that in a more meaningful way. But you also don't want to cut these out and only do these, because this, if this fails, let me put it this way. You only get to do things one time on this. You get to learn composition basically once, because you're only doing it once. You get to do one pose in the piece. You get to do one color style in the piece. Where what you need to do is, in order to prove, your colors, practice a lot of different colors and then apply it. So you got to leapfrog between those. Oh, I'm trying to move over here. Riccardo says, I think there was a cast shadow from the big thing. It feels like a distraction. It will really unbalance the image. Maybe noon light. Yeah, I think on this one, on the piece that we were just looking at, a nondescript light is probably your best choice, which is basically things are lit from the top, but we don't have to make defined cast shadows. So I would go along with that being the direction there. All right, next piece is Mike Saya. Mike, I don't recognize your name. So maybe you go by a username. I don't know the connection between. I love your little, thing here, and your little character. You got a little Jello blob character. Wonderful use of lights. Wonderful use of texturing. Guys, this is an excellent rendition of how to keep things in that medium ground of texture and detail, where it's obviously grass. So most of that grass is fitting in, like I said on that earlier piece, a very narrow window of value and color, and then he comes back with other strokes that basically adds the texture to it. Not everywhere. Not everywhere looks like a shag carpet. Just a couple of places. And then again, in the shadows, he's doing the same. There are variations of colors within the shadow, but it fits within a certain value and color range. And he uses the edge, the contour of the shadow, to help define, again, the texture of the ground and the unseen tree above it. I really love this, man. I think this is great. It has personality, it has great color, sense of lighting. You don't go overboard with outlining your rock work, your stones. And I think this could really fit in a game well. I think you could probably develop these a bit more, or maybe shift. I'm almost thinking that these could be shifting lighter. This is what's coming to my mind. That these bricks are lighter than the rock as a base color, but yet over here they're darker than. The stone is lighter than the grass over here everywhere, except here where the stone is darker than the grass. And I think that could work if you show very clearly that it's some sort of mold or dirt or moss. Moss is also a good option. You have little greens in here, but I think adding some good little three-dimensionally moss growing in some of these cracks, that could work well. Yeah, I'd be very happy with that. That's good. I don't have too much else to say about this. The dirt work, probably the least handled right now. You might think about adding just a few little roots, sticking out of it. Little clumps of dirt sticking to the root. I like the little overhangs of the grass. That's good. No, solid stuff, man. Keep going with it. I kind of want to see more. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm with the chat here. He knows what he's doing here. I'm not familiar with any of your other work. Sorry, man. At least just not by name. But yeah, this is excellent stuff. And this reminds me, the rendition here reminds me of Marco Buschi's video where he's laying out a scene and he's using little color variations in the shadows and the lights. And this is also good representation of being able to establish a strong light in an image without blowing out the lights and without darkening the shadows. So you don't have to go to blacks. Like this still has lots and lots of colors in the shadow, and it has lots of colors in the lights as well. But he keeps them separated value-wise, so it makes it clear one way or the other. All right, let's move on to the next one. Very happy with that. I know they're taking a different approach here. Mikolaj. Okay, let's pull this here. Looking like they're starting with a 3D render. Maybe Google SketchUp is the program. I'm not sure which program. But if you do want to get into learning some fairly simple way to render a scene like this, then Google SketchUp is a free program and one you could probably watch some tutorials and learn in a couple of days, a week, or whatever. And that is a good way if you want a perspectively accurate scene to work from. Even doing a basic SketchUp model like this, and then painting over it can be a great way to establish good perspective. So, okay, now I have to look a little closer and kind of see what you're doing here. Some sort of inn or tavern. Okay. Da, da, da. I'm going to just go look for concept art in different games like, you know, World of Warcraft and all the way to, you know, Skyrim, more on the realistic side, and see about set dressing, because I think that's going to be one of your main things on a scene like this, because you're going for a lot of realism as far as the accuracy of the perspective, the accuracy of the shapes, and the relational size, what is in your image. Personally, I find this a little more interesting than this, as far as just a layout, or maybe somehow these connect to each other. I'm not sure. Yeah, you want to be looking at things like a hearth, the big fireplace. Maybe this is fireplace, but I don't know for sure. Just from that angle, I don't know that for sure. Look for like a giant fireplace, rugs. Look for, you know, antlers, stuff on the walls. Look for pots and pans hanging from the ceiling. Notice boards where people like tack things to the pillars for, you know, where you'd go look at quest goals or stuff. For the tables, maybe you show a variety of different kinds of tables, or one of them's turned a different direction. Antonio is like barrels. Yeah, barrels. A place like this would you likely have a lot of barrels. Maybe trunks where they'd store extra pots, pans, blankets, anything like that. And start trying to add character. Essentially, you're going to be treating the scene is the character, and start trying to establish kind of what the culture is. If this is a place that is a very positive, welcoming place, then you want to use certain colors and include certain things. If this is a cold, uninviting tavern, you want to go in a different direction. You know, if this is out in a wintry place, there's probably going to be furs hanging on the walls. Maybe there's tracks of snow coming in from the doorway. The hearth is going to be a major piece within the room. Usually there's a bunch of stuff stored under staircases. So just go look up references. This layout, I don't find that interesting. Even if you just put this up a flight of steps, and this was on a, 3 feet higher, and this part was 3 feet higher, or 3 feet lower, and just offset that a little bit so it's not completely flat. Also consider trying to add a point of interest. What is the point I want to focus on in this room? If I was the player, what would be there that I'm supposed to pay attention to? Or if this was a real place, what would draw my eye? Very likely it's going to be the bar in the way that you have it laid out. So consider adding something else here, like a series of lanterns hanging on the back wall so that light source draws your attention. Maybe it's painted in brighter colors, so it again gets your attention. So go with that, and remember, you don't have to be perfect to your SketchUp design. If you want to skew things around a little bit, make things a little, off kilter a little bit, usually those will bring in more character instead of being completely plumb and perfect with everything. Lachlan says, where should I start after learning the fundamentals? Should I just draw whatever I want, or should I work on specific topics to improve more? I say at that point it really gets into whatever interests you. The idea is that the fundamentals apply to everything. So once you have those, you know, if you want to be a concept artist, then you need to start paying attention to learning certain techniques, getting more familiar with certain things. Like if you want to be character designer, for instance, in concept art, then you need to start doubling down on learning more about anatomy, learning more about posing, learning more about, I would say, costume, clothing design, expressions, and maybe not paying so much attention to vehicle design, or maybe you don't need to know perspective quite as well. So yeah, hopefully at that point you'll have a better idea of what your interests are, and then you start kind of doing your advanced studies in topics related to that. Yeah. Next up, Murilo. I don't know if that's a... If you're in the chat, let me know. I don't know if that L is a L sound or it has a Y sound. But Justianano. Okay, this looks like a European city or Cretan, somewhere around that time period of location. I like this. This makes me think of an Assassin's Creed location straight off the bat. So if it was mine, that is where I'm going to be looking for some inspiration, concept art for Assassin's Creed. Or Rome. I think there was a movie, not a movie, a game called Rome or Son of Rome, something like that. And they would likely have locations similar. Maybe God of War. Some of them deal with structures. Okay, I assume that these were just studies that sort of got you over to here, because I'm pretty happy with this. Let's talk through what I'm liking and what I would want to approach with a Rise. Yeah, R-Y-S-E was the game I was thinking of. Yep. That has a really good art design in it. So yeah, check out Rise. Okay, I'm not sure what this is. I'm taking this as a building that is near to me, and maybe there is a statue of some kind on it, in which case that's perhaps not needed. Like, since we're doing a cutaway that we're basically just showing you this piece of the stage, I don't know that you need that unless you connect it. So consider getting this building and then running it here, and then letting that come up from it on the other end. So like there's a shorter wall building coming along here, then it's the equivalent wall of this on the other side. And I would say make sure that you try to keep this square actually squared. These architectures of this time period squared things off a lot. So as you would get out maybe from the city and get into more residential areas, it would start getting a bit more catty corner. But for a structure like this would be very 90-degree perpendicular, angles. Everything would be very purposeful like that. So yeah, I'd say go with that. Turn that to a perfect 90 turn from that building. Make sure you're getting in accurate perspective guides if you haven't already, so that like this all looks pretty good, like height wise, Like, that is staying accurate on that level, but it looks like these are off a bit, because that, I think, is angling down too much, unless there's a major hill going on there. So yeah, I'm gonna say double check your horizontals perspectives. The statue, cool. I like the light here coming down. This doesn't fit. This shape doesn't fit. You're establishing a very cube-based style, a very cube-based architecture. I'll say it that way. And then you're just throwing in this cylindrical tower with a cone top jutting off from the wall. And you can do that, but then you need to carry that elsewhere, so it is a standard thing. Like, that would then need to be cylindrical as well. And that would need to be cylindrical. I'm going to suggest removing it or adapting it. And I think adapting it is probably the best choice, because it's kind of interesting to think of a big wall having a jut coming out of it, or you could consider making it basically a small doorway with maybe a wooden platform coming out of it, and it could just be a little observation deck, a temporary one, or maybe they're building it. That's something else to consider with environments like this, is don't show it to me in its perfect completed state. Show it to me as it's being made or as it's being destroyed. And those are usually both more interesting than the middle. And for this one, it doesn't look like it's in the middle of a war, so maybe you show it to me being built or as it's being rebuilt, or maybe it's being taken over by somebody else, right? Somebody else has taken the city, and now they are changing the architecture to reflect their architecture. So some things are being torn down and other shapes are being put up. It's more difficult to convey that, so it's probably not my first choice. So for like this, I would say maybe they're building a new tower here. So there's just right now a doorway, it leads out to a wooden platform. There's some scaffolding, and then there's some blocks being built up, you know, and you can assume it's turning into something. There's the old books, Cathedral and Castle, the children's books. I want to say it's from Biasty? Does anybody have that book and they remember the author of it? It's black and white pen drawings of Cathedral and Castle, two different books. And I would have to Google it. I can't remember the author's name. But he shows the construction process for both an entire castle and a cathedral. And just look at those books. You can probably find images online or go buy them. They can't be very expensive. They've been out for 20 years. And then that would give you an idea of how you could get some of the same structures, same scaffolding structures, same building process, and adding in a bit of those, and maybe like they're building on, you know, these little stable area back here. And so you have wagon carts, and they have wood in them or stone in them, and you have scaffolding. You would have some maybe work animals, that sort of stuff. That would all again add more life into the image. But I like the overall layout. The courtyard is good. I don't know if this is stone courtyard. A courtyard that has maybe a grass or pond in it could be interesting. The multi-level coming up here is nice.
Yeah, I'm keep going with it. I think it's just about double checking the perspective, making sure that's accurate, um, tweaking some of the shapes, eating a bit more life out of it with destruction or creation. Yeah. Riccardo is going Asia with his. Okay. Yeah, I thought you guys would be going smaller. Most of you are going quite large with yours. Like we got Mike doing a very small. Like, oh, he's just a little plot of land with an arch on it. And on the other side, you have, you know, Riccardo and some of the others that are doing an entire village essentially. Okay. You obviously did references of buildings because those are classic architecture styles. I'm not going to say too much on that. Those all look pretty good. Colors are going to do a lot to make that pop or not. I like it overall. Okay, couple of things to keep in mind. Like if this was a particular village, let's say in this game, this is it looks like it's a good village, like not somewhere where you go fight people. So, what could you do? What could you do? My first thought is I like the multi-level, but let's not just have two levels. Something here needs to be predominant. One of these buildings needs to be the main building. And if it's this one, then it needs to be way bigger. I'm going to say it probably should be this one. In which case, let there actually be a third level up with the ground. So double the height of the area that it's setting on so that it is decidedly taller than everybody else. That would be my first thought. Or it could be over here where the maybe this ground extends up twice as much and maybe the tower could be smaller. I mean, it is smaller, but the fact that it's so much higher. And so you have an easy 1, 2, 3 level going on. Because right now it's sort of split. There's just the two. I do like the idea of the water sort of breaking this up. The water coming through here. Looks like you got water coming out from there. Is this water or is this grass? I don't know if that's stairways or water coming down there. I would need that clarified. Sorry, my computer just dinged me for some reason. I don't know why. I assume it's on some other tab that I have open. Okay, other thoughts. If this is maybe, say this is the main governor building or inn or something on that, probably not the inn, like whoever is the more to-do person is going to live here. It's going to be fancier. This looks more like a layman's place, a commoner area, and I think that makes sense. It's the lowest, so it's probably the common person's area. Then I want to see common people stuff out here, like show me a stable, show me a little storage area, show me stacks of wood for burning, show me pots outside, give me the basic backyard storage where people actually muck about over here. And so that's very clear that this is sort of the common working area. The higher class person maybe lives here, and then this is your temple, more of your religious location. And so it, you know, uses a different structure. Yeah.
You did indicate maybe having trees over here. I'm not against that idea. Trees could work well as kind of a little border. Just trying to think if there's anything else you want to do with these, like if, I know it's kind of throwing together two different things, but have you thought about maybe doing the tiers of like they do the what is it, the coffee, the rice fields? So like looking up the rice fields and where they tier so that it's like the ground comes down and then they have a little patty of water for the rice to grow in, and then there's another tier. I've never seen it where there's buildings existing within the tiers system like that. Or maybe you could combine those, like this uses the tier system with the ground, while this uses maybe stonework, so it makes it stand out more, right? So yeah, some thoughts on that. Next up, Stefan Kodal. Always good to see your stuff, man. So Stefan's doing some solid ballistics work. I don't know why you have so much time to do these challenges. Okay, so you say, good to see you back, Clint. Good to be back, man. Good to have you being involved. Which one should I go with? Should continue with? Any tips? Okay, so they're each giving us a really excellent image. You obviously did your homework with setting up perspective, finding references, and I will say that none of them are weak. So, given that, I feel more and more like I'm giving you just a peer review because that's the same sort of stuff I do. Alright, I want to be able to zoom up on them, but I need to be able to do that in Photoshop because I can't draw that out because it's vertical. So let's pull it that way. There we go. Okay, so on this one, I like it. Okay, let's go back to the point I had earlier. Places are generally more interesting during their creation or destruction phase. This is the destruction phase. So it has a character to it due to the amount of time that has passed and it's starting to fall apart, but yet it has a beauty. And the fall colors, I think, are a good addition to it because, again, fall colors is kind of indicating the passing of something, the passing away as the passage of time. Very strong. I feel like this one's pretty straightforward. Like, we come into the image through one of the sides, and we go down the spiral staircase. And that's kind of it. It's a cool image. As far as improving it, consider busting up some of these steps some more. Like, the steps seem pretty pristine compared to the destruction of some of the towers and the pillars. Consider adding a tree or some smaller trees growing up in the central area. I don't know, maybe you want to keep it really clean with just stone in the middle and the warm colors and stuff around the sides. But
I feel like you could almost go with a Lothlorien, not Lothlorien, the other one. City of the Elves, the first city they go to in Lord of the Rings, Rivendell. Almost a Rivendell thing where inside, outside, trees are amongst the architecture. Okay, let's look at the second one. This one really does catch my attention. Out of the three of them, I want to say that this one actually gets my attention and gets my interest the most. Whoa, computer. No. Back over here. Yep. But we're also seeing it. The snow is good. The snow is really good. I like the addition of that because it gives it a real atmosphere, a presence. Your shape language is also pretty interesting. This upward angle thing on the corners, kind of unusual. I like it. You go from very strong verticals with this architecture. That's good. That's good. This, I'm not sure what you're doing here. Is that this on this side, but it's broken? So yeah, we just need to have the background cleaned up a little bit. Not necessarily more detailed. I mean, it can be out of focus, but like I'm not sure what's going on with that. So that would need to be clarified. Considering adding a bit more signs of life to this one. This one actually feels like it has some signs of life in that I'd expect the plants are growing, they're moving. The plants themselves are a sign of life, essentially. We're down here, even just the glow of a lantern, showing me a bench, showing me something that somebody would interact with would be interesting. Let's look at... Also, destruction here would be a good thing. Not that it's so... This one looks like it's so old that it's falling apart. And that's cool. I think that works really well for this one. But this one, I would consider adding destruction. Idea that harsh weather, avalanche, falling rocks have pummeled parts of it. Like... Maybe a big rock came down here and took off this section, right? And so now you've got jagged that's not what I meant. Alright, so some of that is built up, and then you've got snow collecting some of these little crevices and stuff, and you could have snow down here as well, right? And you're just trying to make it look like, you know, a big chunk of this got broken off, and you could have pieces of it down here, right? You could have a little pile of rocks kind of around here, and it could have caused maybe, you know, big cracks in the and that. So I mean, wherever you want to do that, I think that might be interesting. You could even have maybe the big rock that caused the problem is sort of blocking one of the paths down here. It's got all the little debris around it. So that's an idea for that one, is kind of changing that. Another thought that came to mind is that this is actually a pier, like a ship pier, but maybe you have maybe you have like an airship out here. Yeah, like this is a location that is, you know, further along in the game, and you have to get an airship to make it out here and to visit this place. And so these are actually little docks where you dock at, and instead of being closed off on the end, maybe they're open and there's a little platform, right? And there's not much wood, but you know, there's a little wooden platform there, and then there's ropes, you know, for tying your ship on. And then all of a sudden that kind of changes it from being just this completely solitary place to somewhere that you come and go to. Right. All right. This one, again, I like your shapes. I like your shapes. You've got an upswing to that. You've got this level. You've got that level. You've got this going on. You've got something here in the foreground. The lava. You've got this path back here. And it certainly looks like something that you would come across like in God of War. And I think there's similar places that you visit. Kind of like the idea that those are open. Yeah, you see underneath those. That's not solid. Statues are nice. That's a good addition. I feel like there's it's a place to explore, but there's not anything to do. Not somewhere I would expect to meet anyone, and not somewhere that I could do anything. So, like, if I would expect something to be here. It's like if you got here in the game, you'd see this location and you'd be like, oh, that gear, that giant gear right here. I need to get to that giant gear with that big lever on it. Obviously, I'm doing a terrible little gear here, but you know, there's a gear there, and maybe you see, you know, some of the pipes coming down from the gear, and giving the idea that it goes to power something, turns on the lava flow or turns it off, whatever like that. Then that all of a sudden becomes an objective about where you would go and what you're trying to achieve. And you know, with you know, if you're doing that, then you could also have maybe the pipes are running elsewhere, right? And you kind of got them coming in and out of this place. And also you could add different lighting where this is being lit the most, right? This has the brightest part on this part, but then on other areas it's getting darker. So again, drawing your attention to the point that is the most important. You could have other lights, like you could actually use, and keep things from getting too dark, you could use other colors in the, you know, background. Maybe that chamber back there is a bit of a different color. So, yeah. A beacon, a bird. Oh, I assume on the second one. Yeah. Yeah, you could have like... Oh, that's actually a really, really interesting idea, is if you had a roost. Almost like the Aurelie in Harry Potter. They had all these little cut ends on the wall, right? And then you have your birds, your signal birds, and maybe this is where the birds fly into, and then the guy, you know, gets the message on this side, and then he sends out the birds on the other side. And so it's a signal relay place. between the mountain range, you know. So you have the kingdom on that side trying to send the kingdom on that side a message, and there's no pass. And same thing with the airships, right? So they fly until they reach this point, and they have to dock and get new supplies, and then they fly out. So it really is just the stopping point on the way through these mountains. And you could have the birds, you know, several birds maybe tied up, or there could be little posts or pillars that the birds are setting on, and you could have some you know, flying in, and then you could have some in the background that are, you know, coming in this way. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, George. Something along that lines. Yeah. So I mean, for me, this one interests me the most. But dude, they're all solid, and I'd go back to what are you passionate about? Which one are you going to have the most fun with? And which one do you want to finish putting time into to put into a portfolio? Yeah. Okay, and we got one left to look at. That doesn't mean we have to necessarily stop, but oh wait, talking about that stuff. Yeah, Cintiqs can be really nice, but yes, they are also very expensive. There is a lot of good options out. Just go on Amazon, and if you're wanting a screen that you can draw on, Cintiq is not the only name in the business. There's several others that are less than half the cost that have 4.5 star reviews on Amazon, and I would recommend going out there and taking a look at some of those. Okay, last one, Travis Earls. Let's go ahead and just open that in Photoshop. Alright, pull up. Alright, he's given us one large building. Looks like you definitely took your time with the perspective guides. And you're doing a cutaway on the building. Okay, cool. Alright. Now this, okay, immediately confuses me a little bit with the cutaway. Like, this is obviously destroyed, but yet this seems like a cutaway. So I'm not sure at what point it's supposed to be actually not there and what point we're pretending that it's not there. Or maybe this is all open. Maybe it actually is not a cutaway. Maybe it's just broken. Hopefully you need to clarify that for me as it progresses about which is cutaway and which is what part is actually missing. I'm trying to do the cutaway, but also that the corner is broken. Okay, so I would suggest, like, when you're doing the cutaway, whenever you get into doing the actual coloring on it, that any cutaway part is a bright, solid color, whether it's white or orange or blue or whatever, so that it's very clear that that is, you know, a fictional break rather than an actual break. Although, if you're open to destroying some of the building, you may think just doing away with the whole cutaway thing at all, and just saying that that entire part is just busted out. If you want to take the level of destruction to that, you know, point. Okay, as far as the rest of it, we've got the entrance, we've got the building, you've got this here. Okay, it feels like a hotel or manor of some kind, but I'm also not getting a real point of interest. So I'd like to see that. And, I'm having issues figuring that out. I'm going to try to do better with the colors to distinguish the levels. Yeah, I think you need to. I don't know what it's about right now. Is it a modern building that maybe your, you know, your black ops group is trying to go get somebody out of? So I don't know the time period. I don't know the kind of location. I don't know the culture. So give me a bit of, is there roosters out there? Yes. If you don't know, Kauai is full of roosters and chickens. They're everywhere. They're wild. They roam. And roosters like to call out to each other. So this rooster likes to call out to the rooster on the other hill, and he will keep calling out until he hears a reply from the other rooster. And they just do that sporadically all day. There's probably more chickens on Kauai than there are people. I'm going for Haunted Mansion. I'll need to creepy it up with more obvious. Okay, Haunted Mansions. Yes. This could work. Alright, I'm going to suggest diving into kind of a different direction if you go into the Haunted Mansion. Look up like eldritch buildings, Cthulhu, I don't know if I spelled that right. Look for images dealing with, there's some games, like Eldritch Cthulhu games that have mansions on the front of them. And actually, give me a second. Let me see if I can pull something up. I need to switch to my cam. I saved images right on this line, but I don't remember if I put them on this computer or not. So I've got to pull up my backup drive and see if I can find them. If so, it's a really interesting discussion. Yeah, H.P. Lovecraft. It was, there were, okay, let me back up and explain. There was a commission, a project that I almost worked for on a game cover. Yeah, here we go. I couldn't remember if I saved it on here or not, but let's jump over and look at this. Okay, minimize that. Should be good. So yeah, it was a game for a board game cover, and ended up and didn't work out. But I saved a bunch of images of old mansions, haunted mansion stuff. Now this is concept art for a video game whose name I don't remember, but you can flip through some of these and look at them, and the architecture here tells a lot. Unfortunately, this architecture doesn't bring up much. Also, the flat roof. So I'm going to say the idea is good. Haunted mansion, cutaway, kind of destruction. But let's find a better architecture. So we've got like this. This guy, like, that would be a perfect building to base your sort of idea on. These are, this is, I believe, is a old Russian mansion, abandoned Russian mansion. That was one of the things that I looked up in order to find this stuff. Even just old country house looks kind of creepy. You know, something like this. I mean, how much character does that have? That's just oozing, yeah, like Victorian sort of feel to it. You can go into more of a, this is a good example of a ruined building, like for that corner you're talking about, that's sort of destroyed. That. You look at some of the things that makes these buildings have character. That is the angled roofs up on the top, these slopey roofs, that's one thing. And there's always lots of different kinds of shapes. So you've got the big shape, you've got this medium shape, and then you've got the small windows.
and all of these windows sort of protrude from each other. So fairly complex shapes with a number of them interlocking. That was 3.0 Studios. The underlighting was a big factor here, giving a creepy feeling. Underlighting, go-to option for that. Haunted house, classic haunted house. Some more of that same place. Yeah. These columns, right? This has more of the flat roof. Maybe that's closer to what you're thinking. But that has some options. Now, I could put some of these together in a folder if you're interested. You'd have to let me know if you want to, you know, reference any of these. And I got on a kick where I did sketches of these buildings for a while, and they're a lot of fun to do. Yeah, stairways, forgotten cathedrals. I think that's probably one of the best ones. Now here's a good one showing some of the aged, right? This old paneling busting out or breaking off, the windows busted out, boarded up, the whole siding falling off, showing tarping underneath it. You know, that's good. Oh, having stuff like vines climbing up on it, covering it, shows a lot of the time passage. And yeah, another one. Haunted Mansion. Can't remember if I even saved any sketches. But yeah, take a look at this one. Spooky Mansion. Massive mansion that was just left. So the whole thing, also getting things out of plumb a little bit. So ideally this has been left for a long time, and maybe the soil isn't settling well. And so parts of it start, you know, getting catty-cornered. It's not straight roofs and stuff. So whole sections of the house get tilted a little bit. And that can be good for character as well. Alright, different stuff. Gates. Might think about, I don't know how far you want to get out from the house, but a gate would be an excellent addition. Or if you don't want to go with wood, I mean, you could go with more like this. But another thing that they do on some of these houses is the round corners, the tower corners on the house. That is a good character feature. You see that on this one, on several of these. Little animated one. And then having some point on the house that is more prominent. Like this has a very prominent centerpiece to it. This has a prominent tower to that. This whole top section, right? This is a classic thing to add a bit more visual interest. Each side has a little peak to it. So you see that on a lot of these. Yep. Peaks on all this. Yeah, game covers, they got some of those. Yeah, so a bunch of different ideas. I'm going to say find a couple of those that have really good architecture to begin with. And that will get you, honestly, halfway there. And from there, it's just a matter of adjusting it so that it has the right level of decay and destruction, and doing some set dressing so that it has the vines climbing up, tombstones behind there, tall, pointed, gated fence out front. You know, give maybe the clock tower. Maybe it has a clock tower in the front of the building. And so you have the clock tower here, but yet the area behind the clock tower is broken in, or there's just the rafters left, and the rest of it has busted, rotten through. And so you have piles of old wood and moss, and there's water trickling in to the house. And so the bottom level is, I don't know how decayed you're thinking, but the bottom level could almost be like this ugly, marshy stuff. And then you have to climb, you know, make your way up through the house in order to get to the clock tower. And there's ropes or chains, you know, hanging throughout the house. Make sure they're using indirect light is a big thing, and underlit your situation. That would help as well. Give maybe a focal point in the house, like maybe you come in here and there's a staircase, you know, on the side, but on this back wall, it's a 2-story back wall that has, you know, a 20-foot portrait of someone or a 20-foot statue of someone that's a little creepy, and that would give you something to pay attention to, kind of be the thing that would center the inside of the house. Or maybe there's a you know, like a mezzanine, like the inside of the house has this big, beautiful curved mezzanine around a center statue or water feature, you know. That is how I would approach it. That's kind of my mental process of, let's think through it. Let's think it through what the options are. What are different elements that can add to that direction. And of course, starting from a good house design to begin with. All right, let's take a look. Okay, yeah, so you want those. All right, I'll see about... I'll put those together, zip those together into a folder, put them out on Dropbox, and I will put the link out on the Facebook group in case anyone wants access to those. Does someone remember in Courage, the Cowardly Dog, the chapter in the haunted house that was creepy? No, yeah, the Courage one, the horror one, yeah, that was actually a little, I was a little out there. Bricked up windows at one point in the past. The taxes were based off of how many windows you had, so a lot were bricked up. Oh, bricked up windows. Yeah, that would be a good idea too. Okay. Well, we're running a little over 2 hours. I think it's about time to start packing it up. If you guys have any final questions, let me know. And if you want to jump into the challenge and you haven't done it yet, whether you want to do something as, you know, big and complicated as a haunted house, or a Asian village, or something as small as just a little plot of land with a door in it, then feel free to jump into the challenge. I will be sharing the link, as I said, in the Facebook group, and you can upload your stuff to there. The next week will be same time, same place, 2 p.m. Honolulu time. The cutoff will be 2 hours before that, though. So the cutoff will be at noon, 2 hours before the stream, so that I have time to go collect all the images and make sure that there's no problems with them before I start streaming. And we will be reviewing those. I haven't decided whether there's going to be a winner or not. I think we'll just probably pick top looks, and they'll get a bit more time and feedback on the top looks. And I will try to give everybody some feedback depending on the number that we get. You know, if we get 10 or 12, I could probably give everybody feedback. But if we get 40 or 50 like we've had before, then it's going to be very skim. So, yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I do plan on doing some painting over on Twitch, some just personal painting. Over on Twitch, there's an image I'm working on, and I finally decided on the direction I want to go. Now it's time to actually do a lot of the painting. So that will probably be maybe tonight, probably tomorrow, but I'll announce it out on the group if you're interested in joining me over there to hang out.
Okay, I think that's it then. And I appreciate everybody joining me this week. And I hope you will be back. Of course, coming up is the next episodes for the basic anatomy and proportion. I've got, what, 2 more episodes coming out on that. So the next one will be on Monday. Alex Danila. Did I miss somebody? Yeah, we talked about hers. Yeah, the winter scene. Mm-hmm. Sorry, how did we get assignment prompts and submit them? The entire write-up is on the Facebook page, swatches.group. We'll link you right over to the page. And then I will share a link out there in a couple of days about where to upload the image. So I'll probably put it out there on Monday. Then there will be a folder on Dropbox where you can submit it to. And then that's the easiest way to get it to me and make sure I don't miss anybody's. Yeah. And then put your name in the title. So put your name. If it does have a title to the image, you can let me know. But otherwise, it's going to be for the challenge, so I know what it's about. Yeah. Yeah, we talked about Alex Danila's piece. And if you want to hear that again, just wait till this gets processed by YouTube. It'll get posted. You can go back and rewatch it. So, and what else? I was trying to think. There was something else coming up with swatches. I thought I was going to let you guys know. Oh yeah, I was going to let you know. I am working on the next Patreon for all my patrons that have been asking. I am working on the next chapter, which is on the topic of composition. It covers what you classically consider composition, as well as viewpoint and focal points. We're covering a lot of the basic stuff and general composition knowledge and teaching, and then doing some filtering through mood, because it is understanding mood. And how does composition affect the mood of your image? If you want a oppressive feeling, what might you do? If you want a free feeling, what might you do? If you want a scene that's more dynamic, what can you do compositionally? If you want a scene that is less dynamic, that has less energy, then other options. So we'll be looking at that and talking about the moods, the energy levels, and that sort of thing. I don't have a deadline when that's coming out. I'm basically working on it as it needs to be worked on. I'm putting a couple of hours into it every day. I'm expecting it'll be mid-month, next month, mid-September sometime is going to be my guess. It doesn't have a lot of complex images that need to be done, but it does have a lot of little images. So I've just got to sketch like 75 little sketches in order to get it filled out. And it's one of those that it needs plenty of little examples to illustrate what's being talked about. But yeah, composition, looking forward to doing that. Also planning a video. I'm going to be doing a series on the best art advice. So I put out the one video ages ago, best art advice I've ever received. And I'm going to start doing that and kind of spinning off of that because I only covered about 10 points on that video. What I'm going to do is start doing best art advice I've received on a particular topic. The first one up will be faces, drawing faces, or portraiture along that lines. And doing that, because when you're just talking about best art advice in general, that's great. But unless you include 200 different, pieces of advice, it's so general. So yeah, I'm going to just take it by topic and talk about the most crucial pieces of advice I've ever received on various topics. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gathering resources. I already have the list of what I want to cover. And so it'll be a matter of working up my examples, my illustrations, recording and editing that, because it'll need a decent amount of editing on that one. I'm going to be talking about drawing faces, specifically profile drawings of faces in your basic anatomy series.
I go over basically face proportion in the basic anatomy. Yeah, so we go over body proportions, face proportions, dealing with forms of the body, recognizing the volumes in the basic forms in the body, and then practices about how to practice basic anatomy. And then, yeah, I do want to go into more on rendering faces, but that's not going to be within the Art Fundamentals series. Yeah, that'll be its own thing. Yeah. Okay, well, let me wrap it up there. Thanks again for everybody that's joining me, and I look forward to seeing all the finals coming in next week. Be sure to stick around the Facebook group, ask for feedback from the other people. Feel free to share your stuff if you're kind of getting stuck on your idea. Want some feedback, put it out there. People are usually good to give you feedback on that. So I will catch you guys later.